a dream that we'd all die for, a reason for us all to live and something we could fight for. I might just help a man up to his feet or hold a newborn, but no matter what I do, my hands remembering my rifle.
All right.
Take two.
Welcome. I am your turbo monk, Geraint Jones. Forgot to press record, didn't I? When me and Nev were recording. I just started off as well by basically saying, like, don't complain about the audio quality and stuff today. Nev's on the other side of the world. I am many things, but good with technology is not one of them, as we've just discovered. Please do bear with the quality today. We're back in the studio for the next few episodes, but the only way that me and Nev could like get schedules kind of linked up, what with him being 13 hours ahead, is recording at this kind of time of night. So and as much as like Peter from Audio Cafe is very accommodating, I don't really think it would be very fair to ask him to open the studio at 10 o'clock at night over here. But Nev, good to see you again, mate.
It's good to be back. It's good to be back, man. I'm well rested. Bit of a hangover, but who cares?
Bit of a hangover. Oh, what from? What was the tipple of choice?
It was a bit of, I think it was brandy and maybe gin later on. Nothing serious.
I saw, mate, like, I'll say this, right? Obviously, advertising definitely works, because I was watching a cookery program yesterday and the commercial was for, sponsored by like Rocco Gin. Okay. And I didn't want to drink before I watched that TV program. And then I saw that gin and I was like, I really do want some of that gin right now. It's just because it's always a question, isn't it? It's like, is it ethical to advertise things like gambling, alcohol? Because it definitely gets you, mate. Like, do you ever watch Narcos, the TV show?
Yeah, I've seen an episode, 1 or 2. Yeah.
So I've been watching that recently, mate, and believe it or not, it's not making me want to do cocaine. But smoking, like a lot of the characters smoking it, and I'm like, fucking, I could really go for a fag.
Yeah.
Really go for a fag at the moment. I mean, I have smoke like occasionally, like socially and stuff, but I don't smoke on a regular basis, mate. But watching this TV show, I'm like, oh, they look so cool.
I mean, it's almost like Peaky Blinders. Everyone in there smokes every 10 seconds. You know, it makes you want to. Well, I think I can go get a cigarette and have a drag or two.
And I get it. It's under, like, at the end of the day, they're trying to make a realistic portrayal of the period. But at the same time, I'm like, could you producers really cut down on this? Because I'm like, and this is where I'm lucky I live in the countryside, mate, because it's a bit of a mission. I'd have like a 10-minute period in the car where I'd probably come to my senses and be like, oh, no, I don't really want cigarettes. What kind of like area are you living in? Are you out in because obviously you're down in New Zealand now?
I am living on the North Island, an hour's drive south from Auckland. So it's a nice sort of big town. Well, it's Hamilton City, but it's still a nice small town. Not too busy. I live in a nice area. I mean, the neighbor's not really that on top of you. Like some areas where if you stand in your shower and you put your arm out through the window, you can high five your neighbor when he's in his shower. So luckily, it's not that close. But it's a good area. The kids they've got their school around the corner, so they can walk to school or bike to school. I'm not going to complain, man. I've got it easy over here, you know.
Well, you've lived in a few different countries now. How do they kind of stack up against each other?
It depends on the culture, depends on the people. The likes of the UK, when I got there, up north, different from London. London, they're in your face, all over the place, loads of people. You go over to, say, Belfast, again, different, laid back, relaxed, culture's different, the accent, oh man, that's, I won't forget, you know. And over here, again, it's very much like living back in South Africa, minus all the crime.
So what do you mean by that? Just is it like because I've heard people say about New Zealand that it's kind of like what Britain used to be in the sense of like kind of community and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it is. They're friendly. Yeah, they're helpful community-wise. You know, they still have those certain areas where on the corner of the road, you'll find this little tuck shop, and you know, they have the money box there, and you can take what you want and you pay and leave your change or take your change. You know, that type of system. You know, friendly people. nice, relaxed. And the further you go out of their cities, it's more relaxed. It's a small town. No, it's a great place. Again, they love the sport, they love the rugby, the cricket, the outdoor stuff, bungee jump. But different from the UK.
Do you come across many people there that have moved there, or is it mostly people who have kind of grown up around the area?
There's a few that's moved across. Yeah, there's loads of South Africans living here that's migrated or immigrated across and are living here with their families. A few Brits, a couple of Americans. So you do find them over here, but not that many. Like you would say, for example, in the UK, in London. London, there's a big variety of different cultures.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Because it's like, people when, if I meet somebody in America, they're like, oh, I've been to London or whatever. And you're thinking like, well, all right, cool. Yeah, it's on the same island, but really it just couldn't be any different than like, it couldn't be any different to like a small town not a small town, but like a normal sized town in England or Wales or something. I mean, London is like, like London has more in common with New York than it has in common with the rest of the country. Like that's kind of how it goes. So like places like that. So mate, last time you were on, we had to chat about your service, Northern Ireland, Iraq, Afghanistan. Let's talk a bit about how it was you came to decide to leave the military first and foremost. And then we'll talk about what you kind of got up to in the following years.
I think for me, things back then when I left Afghan, it was in May, I think it was in 2007. We got back to Cyprus, and it was at that stage where I just felt off. I just felt something needs to change, and luckily, another officer said to me, "Listen, there's a posting opening up for you if you want to go and do recruiting for the army, a 2-year posting." And I did that, and I think that was my saving grace. And then the battalion went through the different changes. I wasn't happy with. And then I thought, listen, I need to move out. I need to leave the army, leave all the shooting, all the bombs and all that. And then a very good friend of mine said he was going to go and do a close protection course in Hereford. And I should come with. And I said, no, I'm not doing it. I'm leaving all that shit behind. I'm not going to do it. And they said, well, just come over with me. It's an open day. You sit there. They explain what it is. And if you want, you can sign up. Or if you don't do it. But he was going to go do it. And long story short, at the end of that open day, I had my deposit down. I paid, I think, £500 it was for a space on the course. And I did the course, the CP course. It was with, I think, Phoenix back then. And I passed the course. I got offered a contract with G4S. And he got offered, in Iraq, and he got offered a contract with G4S in Afghan, in Kabul. And I thought, so much for leaving all the shooting, all the guns and all that. And I went and I'd done the contract life for a bit.
So you kind of really glossed over there the fact that you wanted to get away from the bombs and the shooting and stuff. So I'm not going to let you skate over that easily, mate. What was that then? Was that just a sense of you didn't want to be away from family, or was it more of a, you were just generally burnt out?
I think burnt out, and also the fact that all the bullshit that comes with the army, treating you like a kid. And I just had enough. I thought it's time to move on. But when I went to the open day and I sat there, and for the first time in ages, you felt like they want you to be there, and they were treating you like an adult. And I thought, this is whole different, this total different environment. And I think we all knew sitting there, because I volunteered to be there, that with that contract life, comes a big risk. People were kind of actively trying to sort of take you out, but I liked it. And there was that certain connection. I thought, I'm going to go for it. It's an opportunity I can't say no to. And plus the fact, when I served the last 2 years, I don't think my mind was in the right place. It was probably good that I'd done the 2-year recruiting posting, because when I came back from Afghan, there were times in Cyprus where I just wasn't myself. It came to a point where I knew, listen, something's got to change, and I'm happy it did.
What were the changes that you didn't like in the battalion you mentioned?
it's more bullshit. You know, you've done 3 tours,
Okay.
and they treat you like kids. Just if you're not doing something the way they want you to do something in camp, you know, they just hound you for it, or they just beast you for it. You know, but I think we were, you know, veterans. We've been in the battalion for a while now, and I just had enough of all the little bullshit.
Is it fair to say that if it wasn't for the bullshit, you would have stayed in the army for longer?
Yeah.
And this, mate, to me is one of the biggest tragedies of the army. Is I would say like the kind of like senior private, junior NCO, like the brain drain that kind of goes on there with like, because a lot of guys that are senior ranks, they'll stick it out because it's like, all right, I've got another 8 years or whatever, fuck it, you know. Plus, they, you know, it's on that level of money, a bit more money. But it's just so many lads just leave, like good senior bods, junior NCOs just leave because they're just like, I love the job, I just want to be treated like an adult. And I don't know, mate, what you think of this idea and stuff, but I've thought before, like, because I understand that, like, a lot of regiments, you have to have bullshit, because unfortunately, young lads a lot of time need it, because otherwise they'll be a mess. But I've just thought about, like, you know, Napoleon, like, you look like someone out of the old guard at the moment with that tash going on, mate. But Napoleon had the young guard and the old guard, and the old guard was veterans. And you could be a private soldier, but you'd served through all these campaigns and stuff. And I think, it'd be fucking great if the British Army had like literally a couple of like some veteran battalions where I'm not talking like fucking Dad's army, but just where like, right, I'm 28 years old. I don't want to be I don't have no aspirations to become a senior NCO or anything. I'll go to the veterans battalion where it's just like squared away blokes, and everyone's almost like a just giant recce platoon, really, I suppose. I mean, because I know, like, look, obviously there is the SF route for people, but you know, the SF route comes with an entirely different lifestyle of ops, training. And that's not for everybody. And not that everybody could make the standard, even if it was for anybody, because obviously they know it's special for a reason.
Yeah.
And I don't know, mate, like, I don't know what you think to an idea like that, because, you know, people say, well, you know, it's just pie in the sky, it'll never happen. But like, look, the army, you know, the army's changed a lot over the last couple of 100 years, and I don't see why things like this aren't a possibility.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, in fact, because then you would retain more personnel. You know, because for the last couple of years, I served with the recce. I was in fire support battalion, and I thought at that stage they would treat you differently. You know, it was great. Yeah, we all had our own room in the block. You know, and I felt like it was a good tribe within recce platoon. A really good, strong bond, you know, which I served with them in my second Iraq tour and in Afghan. And when we got back, the bullshit was still there. And I thought I came to a stage where I had enough. I'm going to stop putting up with this bullshit, you know. And yeah, I think having that where you've got a veteran battalion and you haven't got the bullshit. And I do agree with having the young lads. You need to get them in line. They need to learn, because when you go into battalion life on ops, it's different. You've got to have the discipline. Otherwise, you're screwed, you know. You have to have that discipline. You know, yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I think as well, mate, with veteran battalions, what they would be really good for is ops like what you just had in Afghanistan with the airlift. Like, you know, that's the kind of op where you're not fucking tabbing long distances and stuff. You're not, you're not clearing enemy positions, but you need blokes that can think on their feet. You need guys that are a bit maybe like that they have a bit more humanity about them. And, you know, a lot of the army's ops are peacekeeping ops. Like, you know, you and me, we've been of the generation where we've done Iraq and Afghanistan, but let's not forget what was kind of before there. Bosnia's, Kosovo's, Northern Irelands, you know, all these kind of peacekeeping ops. And I just think, like, you know, that would be, to me, like, if you're some fucking village that's been going through hell in the last year or two in some kind of horrible, you know, ethnic cleansing or something, I think they'd much rather a unit with an average age in the late 20s turns up rather than, or like, you know, around the kind of 30 mark and the 20 mark, because you might have your own kids. You have more kind of life experience. And I think it's the same thing with cops, mate. You know, like, your dad was a cop, right?
Yeah.
There's a big difference between like when you see like a 20-something-year-old cop and a 30-something-year-old cop, like a lot of the time the behavior is very different from them. It's just part of life, isn't it?
Not joking.
So you're going on the circuit then, mate. What was it like going out to Iraq then as a civilian rather than as a soldier? Because you went out there 2005, was it right? 2005, 2006?
No, it's 2010 it was, 2010.
Oh, sorry, I meant when you went to Iraq as a soldier.
Oh, Iraq, yeah. As a soldier, the first was in 2005. I went over to Iraq. And again in 2006, and Afghanistan was in 2007.
So how was the difference? Like, how did you see the difference between not just going as a soldier compared to going as a civilian contractor, but also like, did you see a difference in the country at that point with obviously 5 years in between your visits?
Yes. At that stage, I think the Americans were at that stage were planning to pull out. A lot has changed in the sense of more power was given to the local authorities, your local Iraqi army. I'm not sure if they had an air force left at that stage. Iraqi police, a lot of the checkpoints they had up there was again in their control. So you were at their mercy, whether you can get through or not, or you can bribe your way through. And again, a lot of units pulled back and operated from their bases. They've done their normal patrols and all that. Mostly the Americans. I haven't seen any Brits at that stage doing any patrols or driving around. Just mostly the Americans at that stage. But yeah, again, a lot of power was given to them. I think at that stage the UK and America believe that they've done enough in the sense of training, instructing, and guiding them. And so all the power, all the control was then handed over to them in the sense of all the police and the army.
So what kind of like jobs would you be doing out there?
The first one was I went to Al Hilla, and we had a bunch of. It was a massive. There's actually one road that closed down, and there are all these villas on the opposite side, and then they built like a wall or a fence around those big villas, and we had American contractors there. It was a selection of teachers, lawyers, doctors, and then you get the local lawyers and doctors will be coming to our sort of camp, and then those clients would then teach them how to be better at their job. So the American lawyers, civilians, would then teach the locals and help them and guide them and do courses for those local Iraqi doctors or lawyers or teachers. So predominantly was done within that camp, or we would then escort them on the outskirts or to the local school or to the local lawyer company where you're Iraqi lawyers. And then we would just provide protection for them and get them in the vehicle, have a convoy of 4 or 5 vehicles, have your TL, your team leader, your 2IC, all the bots, all the shooters. But the drivers were all local nationals, as opposed to sort of any other contracts, if it was a diplomatic contract or the embassy or expat heavy, no local nationals. But at that time, all the local nationals, they were drivers. Again, a local national heavy in the team.
How did you find it working with Iraqis like side by side? Because I'm assuming that probably wasn't something you did that closely on your tours.
Yeah, for me it was nothing big. It was nothing odd. I was used to working with other nationals, people from different cultures. The same with when I grew up in South Africa. You had the minority white people and the majority black people, but within the majority black people, different tribes. Within South Africa alone, you've got 11 official languages. Yes, you've got your Afrikaans and your English, but the rest is all tribal. Depending which area from the country you're from, then you would learn that tribal language. So for me, it was no great deal, no awkwardness between them. Yes, the company made sure that they were obviously vetted, that they don't walk on site and they start blasting, killing away contractors, But they would, trade well. The company made sure that they were paid well, fed well, and they also stayed. Some of them and sometimes stayed on base as well. But otherwise, it was no issue.
What was kind of I'm asking you to mind read a bit here, but maybe they talked about it. Did you kind of get a sense of like what was motivating them to do the job? Like, was it money or was it like like more kind of like an idealistic kind of thing, or a bit of a combination?
I would say combination, but mostly the money and the fact that they could do a better job. And the fact that I think for most of them, it was a way into the States.
Oh, okay.
What's happening now, with the Afghan withdrawal, they were obviously trying to get a lot of the interpreters, a lot of the personnel that worked with the Americans and the Brits on various operations, help them to get into either the UK or American. I think for them, like for example, my last 2 contracts, my driver, he's now living in America, and he's living a happy life, with his family, far better than what he would have had in Baghdad.
Mate, you know what fucking pisses me off? You and me like to move to America. We can't get a green card. It's like, I feel like, hey, America, we fought in your wars. Can we please go?
Yeah, where's my green card? So I can go to Venice Beach, live that dream, go to Gold's Gym, train where Arnie trained. It pisses me off. But at the time, I think I'm doing good. I'm on this job. I'm getting good money. I've got great money, as opposed to them. But and then looking back to what's been occurring or what happened the last couple of months, with them just jumping on the plane, off you go. You can now live in the States and use a green card. So yeah, it's frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like they'd argue to be like, well, we're not under such a high chance of being murdered here, but I mean, if that's what it takes, I can piss some people off and get myself greenlit. When you mentioned like the money and stuff like that when you were out there, mate, was it kind of because obviously there was the days in Iraq where the money was insane. What kind of money, if you're open to talking about it, was it big money days or what was it like?
I think back then, nothing like the peak, nothing like between 2003 and 2006, but some of the lower end companies would start the shooters on $250 a day. That's your low end, $250 American dollars tax free a day. Your 2 hours you would get anywhere from say $350 a day upwards, and you've got your or the contract managers and country managers. They will obviously get a lot more. So if you're doing office job, you don't go on any ops. You get a lot more, but with that comes more responsibility. But some of the team leaders on some of these contracts, they were earning, $550 a day, tax free upwards. But for me at that stage, it was a way in, and once you're in, as you might know, all the good jobs get advertised in country. They don't really advertise it. It goes by word of mouth. I had blokes, they would be in the team for a while, and then they would just walk across the road, and there's another compound with a different group working there. You just swap T-shirts, and then you'll get better money. But your money was good to start with. Yeah, it was really good, especially if it's tax free and you're there for 9 weeks. I'm not going to buy much. You might go to the American PX and buy some protein and creatine and pre-workout. And train in their gyms and eat in their DFAC. Otherwise, you just save, man.
So where were you living at the time? Were you in the UK?
At that stage, I met my wife I was still serving with my last couple of years. I met her there. Things got serious. And then I said to her, okay, cool, I'm going to leave the army, do this course, become do close protection. And then she said, fine. She's going to then move to back home to New Zealand. And when I left the UK, I went straight to Baghdad. And from there, and every time I'd leave, I'd fly over to New Zealand because we planned to make New Zealand our home.
How did it feel being out in Iraq with, the kind of the threat compared to what you'd had in Iraq compared to what you had in Afghanistan?
It was somewhat different. We all knew that threat was there. We all knew that the risk of getting blown up via IED was really high. But we're all there, obviously, because we loved the job. We were great at it. But it was somewhat different in the sense of you're not there to take the fight to the enemy. You're not there to seek the enemy. You're there to, provide close protection to your client. And that was, the main objective. So if there was a shooting in the front, you go the opposite direction. You basically you're running away from the fight to protect your client. If it was an IED and the front vehicle would hit the IED, and if that front vehicle can still move, you would drive through the contact. You would get out. purely to protect your client. Depending on drills and skills of the unit, you would then just get away, basically. So we knew it was there, but you weren't out there to go look for them, and we weren't that much of a bigger target in the sense of, yes, we had armored SUVs, but we it wasn't like we stood out like the American one, that these big armored vehicles, and they were driving slow, they were a bigger target, they were sitting ducks, and a lot of the IEDs there was basically for them.
Well, do you find that switch difficult to make, to go from like the more from the offensive mindset to the protect the client mindset?
No, I thought it was awesome. For me, it was an easy transition to go from find, seek, exploit, kill, regardless of weather, season or terrain, to you've got your client, because on the course then they would teach you, and then at the end of the course you can pick, do you want to go being all suited and booted in the Mercedes-Benz and provide protection to your celebrity, or do you want to go to the high-risk area, either in the Middle East or Africa? For me, that was the obvious choice to go there. Yes, you would stand out a bit more. Instead of having a suit, you would have obviously your plate carrier and your ammunition and your map and everything else. But for me, it was a quite fluid sort of transition to go from that way of doing things to a bit opposite or different.
What was it like for you meeting and working with like guys that had been different cap badges, but different cap badges, different tours, but presumably a lot of the same kind of places and stuff?
Again, it was easy because we all had the sense, or not the sense, had the same background, the same training. So there was no need to go and retrain, and we all done the CB courses, and it was the mutual respect. It was like a new tribe. Again, for us, it was easy. It wasn't a cowboy outfit, although we would then every so often bump into people, and you can see, they've got all the gear, no idea. But there was the mutual respect, the fact that we've done the tours, we're professional, we're there for the money, or you're there for the buzz or for something else. But it was easy to actually work with them.
What do you think about the term? Because obviously we use the term private contractor, private military contractor, and stuff. Do you ever consider yourself, or anybody that does kind of like hired gun work, as mercenary?
Mercenary. No, but funny that you say that. When I left the British Army, information came out from the South African government that made it illegal for South Africans to work in the British Army and do private security. And in a very short time, we were actually classed as mercenaries.
Right.
Because there were so many South Africans that during the apartheid era, when that stopped and was in New South Africa, you had a lot of these special forces, community soldiers, police officers that had loads of and many years of experience during the border war. So what now? So they left the army or the police force, and they've done their private security in Africa or the Middle East. And then they will still bring lots of money back. But again, with this issues in South Africa, politics and so and all that, they decided it's illegal, But then again, there were a lot of South Africans that took part in various other operations in Africa. Executive Outcomes, another big unit. Again, a lot of history with them. A lot of South Africans in that unit. So for a short time it was, but I think for me, I class myself as doing private security.
And how long did you do that for?
About 2.5, maybe 3 years. 2.5.
Okay, so while this is going on, then, while you're going out there, you're working in Iraq, you're coming back to New Zealand, what's kind of going on with your previous tours, especially Afghanistan? Like, where's that kind of sitting in your head, if anywhere, at this time?
At that stage, everything was packed away in a shoebox. Not just in my brain, but I've got somewhere in my wardrobe here an actual shoebox with my medals, photos. I mean, I don't have my man cave yet, when that day comes. I'd still have to sort that out with the boss. And if she's happy for me to have my own man cave, I'm going to have it. But I haven't got any other photos or medals. All that stuff is packed away. So at that stage in my life, it was firmly packed away. My main aim was, I'm doing this job. I'm loving it. I'm good at it. You know, I've made some good friends on it. We're all singing off the same song sheet. And I'm enjoying it. And it's great money. You know, I had a list where I wrote down all the money in my account. And ever so often, when the money comes in, I write it down. I would see like this in my account, there's $14,000. And then later on, there's, you know, 20,000. I thought, yes, it's for the future. But it wasn't just for the money. The fact that it was a bit of a buzz, you know. You're out there and it's just that adrenaline pumping. You're getting ready to go on patrol. You're prepping the vehicles. You're checking the map. You talking to the client and you're telling the client, you brief them up. This is the route out. This is the route back. This is the alternative route. If anything happens, this is the transponder. You know, this is the med pack. And there's the whole thing that goes with it. But at that stage, all the memories, all the feelings, thoughts, and everything else from the 2 Iraq tours, and especially Afghan, was firmly placed away in that old shoebox, man.
It's one of the things I've said before. I think I put this in Brothers in Arms. I think so. I'm not sure, but you know, I know a lot of lads that are still on the circuit. I'm sure you do. Yeah. You do Same. Too. Yeah. And I'd say, you know, not all of our guys have come back from Iraq and Afghanistan yet. In the sense of, they did the tours, they went straight onto the circuit. And just like you probably compartmentalized it, and I did when I was in that period in my life, there's a lot of guys out there that still haven't even taken the Iraq and Afghanistan part out of their brain yet. No. Because, well, you can't, for one thing, you can't go and work, you know, somewhere like Afghanistan, if you've you know, because when you accept that kind of warrior part of your life is over, that's when you really start to dissect it. Some people more than others, you know, some people reflect more than others naturally, you know, it's just kind of how it is. And obviously experiences matter too. But, you know, I think there's a lot of people who haven't, you know, they haven't gone through the transition yet, because even though security is different to the military, it's kind of like 1B to 1A, you know, it's like, rather than like, you know, it's them being something totally different. And when that day came for you, when you made the real transition, as in like no more guns, no more guns, but more importantly, no more working with soldiers. I think that's the kind of, it's nothing to do with, well, nothing to do, but I think it's less to do with what your job is and more to do with who you're around all the time. Because essentially you were still living in the barracks, right? You were still in a platoon, essentially. You're still around soldiers all the time. So what was it like to you how did you come to make the decision to leave? And then how was like the kind of following few months? I think it was the one night. It was in Baghdad. I was doing a Skype call to my wife. She was my fiance back then, and the reception wasn't great. A lot of helicopters flying over. So I had my headphones in and I shared the room with another bloke that he was just transiting through. He was going from doing training to a different team, different contract. So I had no idea who he was, you know. And headphones in, and my wife was talking to me, and she held this little stick in front of the camera. I thought, what's this? Is this a pen? What's that stick? And I said, what are you doing? She says, Neville, I'm pregnant. And I thought, I thought, yes. But I thought, I didn't want to show my excitement because this bloke is sitting on his bed there, keeps eyeballing me. No, yeah, I'm happy. And I think that was the moment that I realized, yep, you're going to have to, you know, plan ahead, have an end date, you know. And that was the initial sort of start. And I've done 2 more contracts after that. But I knew my time was ticking because that stage, we had our first child. And I think she was pregnant with our second one. And I thought it's time to move on. You know, it's time to move on, you know, because on the contract, I've seen it so many times, blokes they're there and they miss birthdays, Christmas. And there was one Christmas that I spent with the lads in Al Hilla, which actually is the area where Saddam Hussein, he was born in Al Hilla, Iraq, you know. And we had Christmas there. It was weird, you know, because we sneaked sort of
alcohol, because it must be a alcohol booze-free contract, but we're not going to have a booze-free contract. And it's Christmas Eve. We're sitting there, these grown men in this one room, and we're just boozing away and just enjoying it. But it was, there was that stage where I thought, it's time to move on, time to leave all this behind, and go and live a quiet family life in bloody New Zealand.
How did that go then? How was like the different stages, if there's been any stages, or has it all been the same for you? Like how was like that kind of full civilian life been for you?
The first 6 months was horrendous because I had no job. I submitted my CV to everyone, and they kept saying you're overqualified. And the type of work that I wanted, there was just no need for that. New Zealand, the people here, they're friendly, they're peaceful, they Greenpeace, there's no need for private security. There's a few firms, but they will only take on people that they trust or that they know. And the first 6 months, it was a bit awkward. And then I thought I have to put my pride in my pocket. And there was a job open at a local hospital for a security guard, guarding property, being the security figure at the door, helping visitors, patients, staff members, locking up offices and all that. So I thought, shit, it's either that or nothing. And I did that for 2 years. Hated it every day. But it was a job, and ironic thing is that it was at the same hospital that my wife is working.
So when you're doing that then, was there that little voice in your head that's like, go back to Iraq? Or were you kind of like firmly, or were you firm in the decision?
That voice was there every night, especially on the night shift. I'm sitting there thinking, what the hell am I doing here? This is shit. Because the people on that team, no proper skills, no drills, nothing. They just guards. A lot of them, obese, overweight, big, heavy fellas. For them, over here especially, if you're a big guard or a big doorman and you have that size, people will then, respect that, and they feel intimidating. But it doesn't always work, especially if you've got a young kid that's they either break in or they get into the hospital and want to go and steal drugs, and they fast on their feet, and you've got this big guard that can't run, and then you might run, say, 10 paces and then huff and puff, but that's not going to do us any good. Every night, I thought, every day that I thought, go back, it's so easy. And there was, I think, maybe two occasions where I did started to send my CV out again. Made a few phone calls, sent a few emails out, and a few came back to me and says, Nev, you could be on the flight over tomorrow. There's a place open, and people that I work with, they were just shooters sitting in the back of the vehicle, and they were now country managers. I thought, shit, I could be there, but I chose to stay.
Do you think you're past that point now of thinking that you ever would go back?
It's a yes and no. I think, yes, I passed the point because I've got my family, I've got these 3 kids, I've got a house which I own now, purely because of the close protection. But then the other bit that feels, yes, go, you've got the experience, you've got the knowledge, you're only 45, that's fine, you can still go. But I think deep down, I've got my kids here and my wife, and then, probably not.
Yeah, it's like you said, man, I don't have kids, but I've definitely seen I know I did the boats for a while. I did the security on the ships for a few years. And if there was one knock that people had on the job, it was that they were away from their kids. I notice I say kids there, not wives. I think a lot of them are quite happy to be. I think a lot of them are quite happy to be away from them. But it was hard for them being away from the kids, mate. I saw that, and I've seen it in some of my friends. It's definitely like a high price to pay. There's some things money can't buy. That really is true. Obviously you were in Afghanistan, you went through some hard times out there, and like everybody that's been out there, you kind of leave a little piece of yourself there. I don't think that's a cliche, or definitely you bring a piece of it back home with you, one or the other, or both. How was the situation last year for you? I mean, it's crazy, mate. This feels like years ago now, but it's not even 6 months. But the whole draw down to to the Afghanistan, the whole kind of end into it? Like, what was that going like that kind of period like for you?
Initially, when I watched TV, everything obviously still on Sky News or on the TV. It was a bit of a shock, to say the least. But then again, I believe we did the best with what we had and with what we could at that time. We really tried best. They gave the orders, we did it, and we, I think, made somewhat of a difference back then. But the rest of it was just out of our hands. It was. I don't think that the blokes that I knew personally died in vain. They volunteered to be there. If we could bring them back, we would. But I don't think that. It's difficult, man. It's real difficult. But I think we did our best at that time. On our tour in 2007 with HP when it went in 2009. But then again, not long after that, we left Sangin when the Brits pulled out of Sangin. The Taliban took over Sangin. The same areas that we slept from, that we fought from, was back in their hands. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but we did what we could.
Given like the benefit of hindsight, would you do it all again?
With the same blokes, yes.
Yeah, same mate.
The same blokes, man. Definitely. It's a time, it's an experience that will stay with me forever, man.
Yeah, that's what I always tell people as well, man. And like you said, I also believe that people didn't die in vain, because everyone was a volunteer and everyone was doing the job that they loved. Everyone was doing their calling. So let's be honest, most of us didn't go out there to actually, for whatever the mission was. I don't think you knew what it was, but like, we went out there because we wanted to do the job. So if anyone's listening out there, that's kind of how I think about it. I really agree with Nev on that one. Let's talk about your writing, mate. Like, how did you get into that? Were you much of a reader as a kid?
I was a big reader as a kid. Back then, I was very shy, very introvert, quiet, chubby little kid, keeping myself to myself. And, I had my books that I read, and that was my escape. And then again, it wasn't until I discovered bloody, training and bodybuilding, and then I discovered pumping iron. But before I even watched the movie, I read the book that came out. Right. It wasn't even Arnie wasn't even on the cover. It was Ed Corney that was on the cover. Again, I got the book. It was a secondhand book, and I read it from cover to cover. And I bought various other bodybuilding books, but I always had that enjoyment from reading books. And then that sort of fell away. I left South Africa. I went to the UK, and it wasn't until I wanted to join the British Army that I started buying military books, and I thought, okay, cool. I want to read up. I want to know what it feels like, And then for a very short time, I decided to join the parachute regiment, and I failed this selection at Burbright, where you had to pick, are you going to go for your first option or your second? And I think my first option was parachute regiment, second infantry, which I think was a Fusiliers, and then third option was like an engineer thing. And and I bought various books on the Paras, on Falkland, when I went to the Falklands, and on training and various other special forces books. And I read that, and then that sort of stopped after a while. And it was until my tours, when I went to Iraq, there were, for whatever reason, they had books there. So during the downtimes, you could either eat or you sleep or you train in a shitty gym that we had, or you read. And I read various, again, military books.
So with reading then, how has over time, like you said, it sounds like you used to read a lot, kind of like, right, this is what I want to do in life, so I'm going to read these books. So I want to be a bodybuilder, so I'm going to find bodybuilder books. I'm going to be a soldier, I'm going to find books about the military. How do you kind of go about choosing what you read now?
Well, that's it. That's an easy one. Depends. The people that inspire me. A lot of now veteran writers or poets from the First or Second World War, or if there's anyone that you recommend, or anyone that the Dead Reckon Collective that they recommend, then I would go out and seek that. But again, predominantly would be your your veteran writers that would engage with that. And then every now and again, if I can go and do a workshop, I would do a workshop, and then they would recommend various other books, and then I would aim for that.
So you mentioned the poetry there, the First World War poets. How did you get into that?
It wasn't up until a couple of years ago, actually, that people then recommend them, and then I would look up. And also when I started heavily with my writing, and I thought it's good to do research. It doesn't have to just do suck things out of your thumb, and it's good to go and look into things, because poetry is not just rhyming. You get free verse, you get various other types of poetry, of poems. And so I started looking into that, and I realized, shit, there's actually loads. There's a lot of veterans, from the Second, First World War, Brits and Americans, that's written,
Welsh.
And,
don't forget the Welsh, mate.
And the Welsh. That's it's known history. It's beautiful stuff, that I've gone into.
Yeah, it's a weird one, mate. The First World War poetry, because obviously poetry was a lot more mainstream than obviously it is now. But when you're dragging up hundreds of thousands of millions of troops at an age where that is something where people are, treating it the same way that people will treat creating music or something now. It's a lot more mainstream. You're bringing in people. So there was a Welsh poet, I don't know if you ever heard of him, called Hedd Wyn, who he won like this kind of like, they had the chair was, I know it's like a shit prize, but they had like the chair for the best, kind of poet and stuff. And he won it. But he was killed. He was killed at Ypres, I think it was.
Okay.
And, so he never got to actually kind of claim it and stuff. But he was a poet before he went to the trenches, and in that kind of like that big dragnet of conscription, there was a lot of people that were already kind of like known. And not only was he a poet, he was a known poet. Like he was in those kind of Welsh poetry circles and already kind of known. You can actually see there's a memorial and stuff out to him if people ever actually get out to Ypres and stuff, as a memorial to the guy, and his stuff is really good, and it's actually but obviously all kind of in Welsh, and I think, like you said, mate, one of the interesting things about it is you've got people from different countries all kind of doing it. It's like, and I wonder now, is there something that the Taliban do? Is there some Taliban guys out there? Because I imagine that poetry is probably something that probably kind of goes like, or kind of like those kind of verses. It's something that probably is more fitting to their culture, or more, than ours in a lot of way, because they are quite. I don't know if you've ever, if you like that kind of culture. I'm trying to think how to phrase it. It still has that almost like that kind of old classical storytelling tradition about it. As stuff like they don't have Hollywood. There's a lot of spoken, a lot of spoken word storytelling, and stuff going on there, mate. So I mean, I don't know if you're up on your Taliban poets and stuff. I'm sure. I'm not saying like poets as we think of it, but I think there's definitely kind of. I'm sure they probably have their, their kind of guys who are into that similar kind of. Storytelling tradition. Where was it that the inspiration and the kind of motivation came to you to start writing in the first place?
Well, I kept a journal when I went to Afghan, but that journal was basically just putting down the amount of times we got attacked. Because for the first 20 days, we were just basically defending the compound or the base, And then at first I would start with, 2 o'clock, contact, RPG, small arms, and then I kept going with that, and then I started to just write down my thoughts for that day, how I felt, how shit it was. I might put down, it was a beautiful sunset, and contact, we just got attacked, and then I started to write more about how I felt and ideas of life, and they're very philosophical, which I kept everything to myself, and I kept most of the time that I was there, I kept that journal. But then, same as all the other photos, my medals, I closed that. They went in the shoebox, and it went in the shoebox. But it wasn't until 2019 that the Dead Reckoning Collective, the American veteran company, that they had a ad on social media where they were opening up submissions for their second anthology of warrior poets. So you submit stuff. If it's good enough, then they're going to publish it. And again, there was an instant connection. I thought, shit, I could do that. And I wrote 3 poems. I submitted that. It wasn't until a year and a half later that an email came through and saying, and they said that 2 of my 3 poems have been selected and will go in. But it was after that initial, when I clicked submit on the email, that I started to write more. I thought, shit, there's a connection. I started to write more poems, more poetry, and I became more. I think I had more confidence within myself, and I started to put it out on social media, but not on Facebook, because I still wanted to keep it nice and quiet. I don't want any of my army mates or veteran mates to know that I'm writing poetry, because it's something that's just not known nowadays, especially in Afghan, in 2007. And it wasn't. And then I think Dan Roberts from the Veteran Collective, he came across some of my stuff, and then he approached me, asked if I want to submit or write stuff for his first book. And that's how it all started. And it was the floodgates. It was open, and then I've done stuff for all 3 of his books, and it's been nonstop since. And then I've learned. It was a big learning journey. I'm still learning, because literature itself is or can be quite daunting, especially for me, because I'm Afrikaans, and a lot of stuff when I put things out, and I think, oh shit, grammar, shit, take that out, change this. There's Afrikaans word, but I can take that out, And then it's not that just you have to go and study, you have to learn. I think for me, and it's been nonstop since.
Do you write in more than one language?
My journal that I had in Afghan was all in Afrikaans.
Okay.
I don't know why. Nowadays, I feel more comfortable doing things in English. But either way, I'm fluent and bilingual in Afrikaans and English.
What's your when you were in Afghanistan, what was your inner monologue? Like if you were alone and thinking to yourself, what would you be thinking in?
You mean like language?
Yeah, like in your head, when we think in our head.
Afrikaans.
Okay.
Afrikaans.
So that makes so that makes total sense that your journal would be in Afrikaans. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah. Nowadays, I think I've got a bit more life experience that I've picked up since. I've changed a lot. When I served in the British Army, there was a different me. And that doesn't define the person who I am today. There was just a small character, that I've played in my life. Things changed. I was a different person before I even joined the army. Different career. I'm now doing something totally different. And I've since published some of my poetry. So, yeah.
Do you continue to journal now?
Yep. So there's times I might put things down, or I might put words or a sentence. It could be things that I want to write about or write more, or I might hear a certain song, or there might be something that's a trigger. And then I might have the thought, and if I don't have my notebook and pen, I'll put it on my phone. Or if I'm at home, straight onto the laptop, and I would have a folder where I've got all these again, thoughts or feelings or ideas that were put down, or if it's a idea on a book or a poem or any ideas I want to eventually use, I would then write that down.
And are they like kind of exclusively military ones, or like kind of related to war, or do you find yourself writing and thinking about in writing terms subjects outside of that?
I would say, subjects outside of that. It would be. It used to be just about my Afghan time or Iraq. Now it's more about my past, my upbringing, my dad, my mom, their influences on me, and my kids, how I feel now, the unknown of what they might go through, the fact that I won't be here when they're much older. I hope that they can outlive me. About them, my son, the differences between the relationship between me and my dad and me and my son, So I would say there's a big variety of things I would put down. Also, about I think I like every so often to write thing about a landscape or a sunset, and put something dark in there, dark line that would then draw the reader in.
Is it fair to say then that it helps you to make sense out of the past, out your feelings, that kind of thing? Is it a way of kind of ordering your thoughts?
Yeah. It was a big help during our first lockdown as well that we had in New Zealand. A lot of the stuff that's in Darren's first book, The Veteran Collective, is what I wrote during the lockdown, and that was a massive help. It was a stage where everything just locked down. I was working from home. I had no gym, and the gym for me is a place I can go and focus on me physically, mentally, and that was taken away. And the writing again, I think saved me. Even though I was drinking quite a lot that lockdown, every night, and that helped tremendously. And then that's when I started to write more about my kids, my wife, and again my past. But again, I think back then I was very hesitant to write about my past, because I think back then I was still worried about what if that particular person would read it and what they might say or what they might think, or they might interpret as in it's negative, or they won't see what I feel and what I'm seeing, but I think I'm over that. And if I want to write something, I'm going to write it.
How are you over that? Like, what has changed in you that you don't worry about that now?
Confidence, life experience, I would say, that I can't control what other people think and what they say. They can do it regardless. I can control how I react to it, and that's helped a lot. I'm going to I'm going to focus on what I can control.
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing, and how I react. I could react in a very negative way and say, "Oh, this is bullshit. Why don't you like it? Why don't you like my reading?" I might show it to my wife, and she might interpret it as something different, or she might look at it and I might expect it to say, "Oh, this is wonderful, this is amazing."
Yeah.
and then she'll say, "No, this is actually dog shit, this grammar here, this is wrong, this spelling mistake." And I'm thinking, shit, I've already put it out on Instagram, and then it's how, but I need to react differently. It's like, "Oh, excellent, well, thank you for your input. I like it, thanks for helping." I would say that's the reason why, is that I can't control. I just cannot. I can't, and if they interpret in a different way, then so be it. Whether it's someone close by reading the stuff, or a family member, or my wife. Well, my wife, she's read a few, but not many. So
yeah, mate. I say it to everyone with the writing. You're never going to please everyone, so just please yourself. Like, that's the only thing you can do with writing, because everyone will have a different take on it. Some people love something, some people hate it. Most people will be in the middle somewhere. But no, it's it's funny that you can say that, because when you show someone you're writing, and like, obviously we've all been debriefed, and I mean debriefed, Breckenhand in the military, but it never felt that personal. Whereas like with your writing, because it's a bit of your soul in there, it takes a while. And like, look, mate, I'm still at the point now where I'll get notes, and my first reaction is, "Don't know what they're fucking talking about. This is brilliant." And then you're like, "Oh, I kind of see the point." And then you eventually come around to it, and you're like, "Oh, you know what? These changes will make it better." But that gets, like you say, mate, that gets easier over time, because like at first it is like, it's a cliche, but it's true. You are literally bearing your soul because like, I think as well, what you put out first is always your most raw stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then over time, like, because you've got the big, meaty, nasty thoughts out of you by that point. And then don't get me wrong, like, I'm totally with you, mate. Like the beginning of lockdown, I was just like, glug, 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 fucking. This one don't work anymore, mate, after that. And it's just like, there are those periods where you probably will get like that resurgence of the raw stuff, but I don't think you're ever going to match what comes out of you when you first, because you're talking at that point, decades of stuff that's going to be coming out through that pen or thumb or whatever people are using. And then, like, you know, as you get further down, things, you know, do kind of become more refined. What are the kind of like the big questions in your life and in your mind at this stage of your life?
In what sense? In
Is it just like, so like, I'll just give you like, so I think a lot about death now, mate. But not in the sense of like, oh, I'm gonna die. Like, well, actually, that is kind of part of it. But like, not in the death that we used to think about when we were on tour, because then you used to think about death in very practical terms, right? As in, like, better make sure I got my tourniquets in my pockets. But now I think about consciousness and stuff like that a lot, mate. And I do think about like, where do we go?
Same. Yeah, I think about will I wake up tomorrow? What if I don't? You know, it's all my it's everything in order in case. You know, what about my kids? You know, will they be okay? And thinking, am I doing a good job? Thinking about your consciousness. Thinking about will my soul go somewhere? You know, what's going to happen with that? You know, have I got a soul? I'm more thinking about that type of thing than, as you said, in the practical sense of, have I got a tourniquet? You know, is that an IED? My thought process is much different to when it was in 2004, 5, and 6, and 7.
And has the kids been a big part of that?
Massive. You know, they change your life. You know, my firstborn, and I've got, you know, obviously 3 kids, and they change a lot. A lot of it is, shit, I want to do my best. You know, every bit that I miss, I can't have back. You know, if there's a time that they come up to me and I'm tired, I'm grumpy as hell, and my little one comes up and she taps me on my leg, Dad, can you help me with this? Do you want to go and play? And then I might be a bit grumpy, and then I will make an effort to go and play, you know. Or if I say, no, just leave me alone, I'm busy, and she walks away, and you could see that just destroyed her day, her moment. She just wants to be with her dad. Or my boy might come over to me and say, Dad, can we go to the park? You know, and then I'll be thinking of all the excuses of not to go out, you know, and all he wants is just to go to the park, kick the ball around, and that's it, you know. And then I would make effort into spending as much as I can with them, and then helping them, guiding them. And then a lot of stuff that I've been putting pen to paper is for them. So eventually, when they're old enough, if they want to know more, if I'm still alive, then they can obviously ask me, or they can read that, what I've been through, you know, whether it be in a novel, in a memoir, or a poetry book.
So I'd be interested to know if you think the same way as I do, mate, because I really agree with you that it's so important to be present for moments, right? And it's something that, like, I struggle with, and I think maybe if you're somebody that's naturally inclined to write, it's quite natural to be outside of your head. So to be present can be quite hard. But also, I find the more that I try to be like, remind myself like, oh, you're not going to get these moments again, the more then I start panicking, like, oh my God, I've only got like so much time left in my life. Or like you said, I might not wake up tomorrow. So like, Do you find the same, mate? Like I have this really hard time balancing being present with totally fucking melting down over like how short life is.
Yeah, I think it's if I overthink things, you know, if I focus too much on that, when I think, okay, cool, enjoy this moment now, because you might not have the moment again, you know, and I focus too hard on that, then I start to freak out, and then I just overthink things and I get anxiety. But instead of just going with the flow, if my kids, and they want to go play, go with them and enjoy that moment, you know. Or if I've got an idea and I want to put that idea on paper, you know, do that, you know. Or if there's an opportunity for something, go for it. Because I've had so many opportunities over my lifetime which I never went for, and there's been a few which I regret. Or there might be time where my wife might say something and I'm not in the moment. I'm thinking about other stuff, you know. I need to be in the moment, you know. But if I overthink all that shit, that's where I feel it's forced, and then it just doesn't work.
So it's really kind of, in a way, you don't even have to make that many decisions. Just like let the kids make the decision. Like essentially, like just kind of have that attitude of like, right, well, if the kids come and ask me to go play, I'm going to go play. And like almost like taking some of that, stress for making all the decisions all the time and just being like, okay, right, well, in these situations, the kids come and go and ask to do that. And like you said, mate, like you can put it, so kind of to relate that to anybody, let's say there's a young soldier listening to us to talk right now, probably thinking like these two fucking salty, crusty old vets talking about SLRs. No, not that old. But yeah, if you're a young soldier listening, if someone says, we need someone to do a course, just stick your hand up and go, all right, cool, I'll do the course. Don't overthink it.
Yeah.
Stick your hand up, do it.
Yeah, exactly. Just go for it, because as soon as you sit there and you overthink things, should I go for it, should I not? Someone's told me don't volunteer for shit. Don't worry about them, worry about you. If you think it's going to benefit you in the next couple of years or the long run, go and do it. It's not going to be this 12-month, 12-year-long course. It's a short while, you go and do it, tick in the box, move on.
Mate, you mentioned lockdown and drinking and stuff earlier on there. What's your kind of, position on when it comes to like alcohol and things like, things like that in life now? Is it a help to you, a hindrance, or kind of like where are you with that kind of thing now?
Yeah. It's a hindrance if you go out, well, for me personally, and if I consume it every night and it's large amounts of alcohol, instead of having a quiet, innocent one drink, as opposed to, drinking as much as I can every night, thinking it's locked down, I can sleep in, I could do homeschooling with the kids after lunch, that's an issue for me. And I would rather have it at hand at night when the kids are asleep and I can write, and I would then put thoughts, ideas to paper, and I can have a one drink. I can happily have one drink, and then edit the stuff in the morning.
So do you feel like it helps you write?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes that combined with music, it will a certain sound. It will trigger something, and then I can smell Iraq, or I can smell Afghan, or if I close my eyes, I'm instantly back at a certain time and place. Whether it be in a Sangin, whether it be patrolling, whether it be driving in a snatch, I'm top cover, and that stench, that smell, and the heat hits you in the face. I could just sit there and close my eyes, and that's because a certain sound or a music. Music is a big thing for me. That's helped tremendously with writing as well. Sometimes none of that works, and then I find myself, I'm forcing myself to write things, and then it's just a crock of shit, and then I just delete and I don't do it. But if it's a writing prompt, which the likes of Dead Reckoning Collective, they've done a lot. The PP Abate book club, which I think I'm the only Brit there.
Mate, I love Tom. I love Tom.
It's amazing.
Love what he's doing.
Respect.
Love what he's doing.
The whole thing is amazing, and I'm part of their book club, and they've got a writing prompt, and then every so often, once a month, I think they've got a live Zoom session, and then they discuss the book, and also the author of the book is there as well, and you can ask questions, all that. But yeah, it's music as well. But then with the writing prompt, that helps, because it's almost like that's your objective. You have to go and reach the objective. And then a lot of my stuff, which I'm happy with, I like, was because of a writing prompt. But if I sit there one eye and I try to force the alcohol down, and I try to force the music to come up with an idea, then it doesn't work. Then I just leave it, and then I go sit with the kids, or I just watch a Netflix with my wife. But there's other times where they might say something, or they've done something, and that's initiate, or it was a trigger from my life as a kid when I was their age, and then I just start writing down. It flows for whatever reason. I'm not going to question it. I'm not going to ask why. I'm just going to go with it and just fill the page.
So when you say music, mate, are we talking about like songs that you remember from tour that will, or like is it kind of like music from that period when you were away and stuff that will jog your memory?
There's a small minority, a small selection of the songs that I've listened to. But the rest is all different songs, different bands. Could be a band from the UK or from South Africa, or a local Kiwi band. I think the beat, sometimes the lyrics, but no, it's stuff that I've listened to on tour. A very, very small selection of stuff.
Mate, obviously, I know, you know, like me, times in the last 2 years probably not been the most fun ever, to be quite honest. But what are you kind of like most optimistic about this year? What are you most looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to them bloody easing all these restrictions in New Zealand. Because every time they just change the goalpost or they dangle the carrots, and you think, okay, I'm not going to be selfish, because they keep saying, don't, you know, be selfish. Don't do it just for you. Do it for everyone else. And I just really hope that they could just, you know, change that, and so we could just get along and move on and just enjoy life. But at this stage, there's this, you know, underlying anxiety, the feeling like, shit, okay, cool. I don't agree with some of it. I don't like it. You know, I came to a point last year where I had to make a decision. Do I do something or do I lose my job? You know, and I've got a mortgage to pay. I've got kids and all that. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to it being a bit easier, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm totally with you, and you know, I think it's very easy for a lot of people to say like someone should do this or someone should do that, and you know, but realistically, people have kids, people have families, you know, people have to make decisions that don't sit well with them, and I think that's kind of something that comes to responsibility, isn't it? Is a lot of times you have to make decisions that aren't necessarily the ones that you'd want to make. But you know, that's kind of part and parcel of being responsible for other, you know, for other people. And I know, like a lot of people have had to swallow pride and stuff like that. And you know, it's I really hope we are coming to the end of it, mate. You know, I think that I always thought this thing would have a shelf life because basically anything, and I'm not saying lies, I'm not denying that COVID is not real. It definitely is real. I fucking had it. But it was never what they said it was. And if anyone's ever been in a relationship and you start telling lies, it's going to come crashing down at some point. You can't continuously lie. Like, evidence is evidence. Experiences are experiences, and I always thought this thing had a shelf life, and I'm hoping that we are starting to see, you know, the end of it now, mate. And I think what's kind of good, like if for New Zealand, Australia, Canada, if Britain and other countries turn around and go back to normal, then that then is again starts to unravel. You know, like you can't have one or two Western countries that go back to normal and the others don't, because those people will start to say, well, hang on, like what's going on in Britain? They've got the same virus as we have. How come they're back to normal? You know, yeah. So I hope we get past it, mate.
Yeah, fingers crossed, man.
Any final words to the listeners, mate? To the noble listeners?
Noble listeners, I would say just enjoy life. You know, don't worry too much about tomorrow, man. Just be in the moment, enjoy it, the time, and listen to the veteran state of mind, and listen to his podcast.
Cheers, mate. Hey, we'll have to meet up. I think probably the easiest place for us to meet up would be at PB Abate. Yeah. Probably about halfway, mate. I'd love to go out there, mate. It just does look absolutely incredible out in, it's Montana, right? I think
Montana, yeah. I said to my wife, as soon as restrictions ease up and I can, you know, I can fly out and the borders are open, you know, I'm going to go there and see what it's like, you know. But yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Well, we'll have to try and coordinate it, mate, because I'd love to meet up with you in person. I've got something in my eye here. Fucking, it's definitely not to you. It's not to you. Mate,
getting soft.
Yeah, mate. Hey, tell you what. Actually, you know what? Let me ask you this before we finish. Are you a bit of a softie these days? What with fatherhood, everything you've been through in the military and stuff, like. Where you watch, on a scale of 1 to 10, if you watch Band of Brothers, how likely are you to start crying?
I would say about an 8.
As in, like, on the likelihood scale?
Yeah, I would say that, yeah. Purely of what I've been through, I've got kids, my whole thought process is different. Yeah, I would say about an 8, man.
I think it changes, mate, doesn't it? Because when you're a kid, when I was like I say a kid, but when you're a young man, when you watch something like the Pacific, you're thinking about you and your mates in that position. So it's kind of exciting and stuff. But now that I'm older, and I know now when I look back on something like the Pacific, I'm like, those were 18, 21-year-old guys. And you're starting to see them as, oh, that's actually someone's kid. Or that's a guy that never got to be a dad. And all that kind of stuff. And I think that's why it becomes more emotional, mate. Because you're just watching all these blokes just get cut down. And you're like, what? He was fucking 18 years old. You know, those guys were 18 years older. Because you know what they, and then the more you get to appreciate life, the more it obviously saddens you when you see and think about people who had their lives cut short, because you're like, fuck, this is amazing. Life is amazing. And, you know, like you and me right now, mate, we've lived twice as long as a lot of World War II, World War I soldiers did. And that kind of blows my mind because I don't feel like I've been here that long. You know, do you know what I mean, mate? So, yeah, mate, you know, have you seen that movie 1917?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, a few weeks back.
What do you think of it? Because I haven't watched it, and I'll tell you why in a sec. But what do you think of it?
I thought it was quite amazing. I think they could have brought in a few more characters. You know, the movie I think focused on these two characters. You know, from beginning to end. You know, it was well shot. The fact that they've had a different technique of using one shot continuously without cutting, and I think that was quite amazing. I think it was a good film.
Yeah, the reason I haven't watched it, mate, is because I just thought, I'm just gonna get upset watching this. Really, what's the point? Like, just literally just get upset. Because I read I try and read like a lot of First World War memoirs and stuff, and you know, it's just like fucking hell. I mean, you can't wrap your head around it. You really can't.
No.
You know, it's just the scale of it is too massive. You know, to get your head right. Even just the take away all the actual murdering and killing and everything. Just living in a fucking trench, let alone anything else, mate. Just living in a muddy trench.
Yeah.
Like fucking with no Gore-Tex, no nothing. Just in a fucking freezing cold trench. Or a boiling hot trench. Maybe you've scraped out the ground if you're in the Anzacs or whatever, and in Gallipoli in those places. And I don't know, mate. I think you know, I was talking to Joe about this when we did the Rants and Bants this morning. You just kind of come to realize how many human beings have had absolutely horrible last days on Earth.
Yeah, and they're young as well. You know, if you look at the amount of people, you know, in the Pacific. In the First and Second World War, you know, the soldiers that died, and then, you know, look at the other innocent, you know, civilians that died as well. The sheer numbers, it just blows my mind.
Let's finish, actually, mate. Let me pick your brain on one more thing before we go. Remembrance. You're from South Africa.
Yeah.
What is remembrance in South Africa like, and then how is it going to differ, or how is it similar to what we have in the UK?
Growing up in South Africa, it wasn't a thing that what I can remember that I've done a lot. I know my dad. They had events with the police force that they took part in, but I think back then I was just too young, too naive to actually understand why they had that on. You know, and it wasn't until I went to the UK. And I remember before I joined the army, they had a one on, and I took various photos in London, you know, and that struck me. And then obviously when I joined up, it was different. But as a kid growing up, that was never a thing. They had events with my dad, with his police force, with the unit, but it wasn't a thing that was part of back then. But obviously it changed over the years. When I joined the police, the army.
All right. Well, Nev, thanks so much for the last couple of conversations, mate. Really enjoyed it. And welcome back anytime, mate. And if anything I can do to help promote the books or anything like that, let me know, mate. And thanks so much for coming on. And listeners, thank you for being here. Check out Nev's social media. I've linked everything down in the show notes. The book's down there, linked up down there. All that kind of stuff. And also subscribe to the newsletter because I'll recommend books in there not just my own, not just Nev's, all kinds of books, everything down in there. If you're interested in that stuff, sign up to the email, and it also allows us to keep in touch when I get kicked off Instagram, which I've had 2 posts pulled off there today. So no, actually, I'm on 2 or 3. I've had at least 2 pulled off there today. We are on the naughty step. But bro, thanks so much for coming on, mate. I'll catch you soon.
Oh, thank you. Cheers, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, mate.
Sold a dream to all of us, a dream that we'd all die for, a reason for us all to live and something we could fight for. I might just help a man up to his feet or hold a newborn, but no matter what I do, my hands remembering my rifle.